this video, I'm gonna talk about how I painted Young Bilbo from the Middle-earth strategy battle game. I primed in black using just a good old hardware black primer. I did his coat in Galvorback red, which is a nice dark red. The coat is the majority of the model, so you'll get 60% of the sculpt just with Galvorback. Came out looking pretty good. And next up, I went with a Deathworld Forest. This is for his vest. You gotta be just a little bit careful. It's not a very big model, so you gotta go in with a little tiny brush here just to make sure you get that vest and don't go over into the Galvorback part of the model. And then I used XV88 just to get a tie. Make that little central part pop out a bit. For the pants, I used Mornfang Brown. I used an air paint just because I like to just use the thinner paint so I can paint it on without doing a whole lot of thinning on the palette. You don't have to. Obviously, you can just use regular Mornfang Brown. It doesn't make a difference. Used Kading Flesh Tone for his skin, his face, his hands, and his feet. And don't forget, since he's a Hobbit, he's got those little pieces of hair, little tufts on his feet. You can paint over them, or you can do as I did, which is just to paint around them. For the hair, I use Steel Legion Drab. That's because Bilbo's got that dirty blonde look going on. I use that both for the hair on the top of his head and on his feet. And next up, I painted the sword. That was with Leadbelcher. Sting is just an all-silver sword. So that's the hilt, the pommel, the blade, everything. Just go in with that with Leadbelcher. Well, that's the whole model base coated. After that, it's time for some washes. I used Reikland Flesh Shade for the hair and the skin tones. On the pants, I used Agri Clear Shade. For the vest and tie, I decided to go with Athonian Camo Shade, which is like a yellowish green wash. Just use it on both of them, kind of tie them together. For the blade, I used Nona Oil. Now, arguably here I made a mistake. I went with Carroburg Crimson. So, in and of itself, it doesn't look that bad, but the finish is very glossy. I didn't really like it. I later on kind of fixed it, but you'll see later here, the Carroburg is very glossy. So, I went into the vest now with Lauren Forest, which is like a little highlight to pick that out. I like to paint inside out in case I make any mistakes. So that's why I went with that next. Go with Wordburge Red now to try to remove some of that gloss that the Carroburg left on. I got rid of most of it, I think. And to highlight the pants, I use Scrag Brown. I just picked out the little folds in his trousers there, for the most part. Nothing too fancy. Now I went back in after I washed his face with some Cadian flesh tones, just to bring up his cheeks, his nose, his eyebrows, and so forth. And then I went into his knuckles and just the higher points of his hands and feet. I realized I kind of went off camera here a little bit, but that was because I was concentrating, trying not to mess up those toes. After that, I used Tellarn Sand to try to just pick out some of the higher points of his hair to, again, try to get that dirty blonde look. Dirty blonde can kind of be a little bit annoying to do, but because you don't want it to look too blonde, but you still need it to visibly look blonde. So I just picked out some of the upper tones of his hair with Tellarn Sand. And don't forget to highlight his feet too. The Zamisi Desert is more of a bright yellow, so I just kind of highlighted his tie there to actually make it look more of a yellow, since I washed it down a little bit with Thony Camoshade. And now for the best part, the eyes. I used Old Fawn Gray Air, since I find that like pure white is a little off-putting when it comes to eyes. I just got a very finely pointed tip and just went right in. And then for the pupils, I just used Abaddon Black Air. Made a bit of a mistake there. I went back and cleaned that up. Now to highlight the blade, I used Runefang Steel just on the edges of Sting. And on his last thing was his buttons on his coat. I used Retributor Armor because the buttons on his coat are gold. And here's the finished product. I used the basing scheme I normally have for Thorin's company. And he's all done. I think he turned out pretty well. Thanks for watching.